You are now entering the LuxCore Studios. And you've secured a seat for the Protecting Your Radius podcast. Here, we build connections from your contracting profession to some of the top bleeding edge products and services. Don't get deterred. Let's not delay. Here is your host, Nathan Downs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs. Hey, today we got something a little special. There is a lot going on out in the market. I had several different interviews and things go over the last week or two. Pushed back. We've got some exciting stuff coming up in the next few weeks with some events going around. And I think there's a lot of really cool content. I wanted to recycle something from when 10 of you watched or listened to any of this stuff back at the very beginning. Basically, my second father, especially in the business, Cliff Richardson with Arrow Fence out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think it was the third show that we ever did. And Cliff and I just have I've known Cliff for, over a decade. And he's just been such a great mentor and leader to me. He taught me taught me chain link fence and kind of gave me some of the pointers on wood. He was the one that sent me out in the field to learn how to do a dog ear fence, a cap and trim fence, all those fences that we sell every single day. And I'm really indebted to Cliff. So since only, like I said, about a dozen of you watched that episode or got that, we're going to tag that onto the tail end of this. But there's so much going on right now, which is why I wanted to get outside in my house tonight and just share with you guys some of the things that's happening. The industry, the marketplace is rapidly moving. There's a lot of different things happening out there. There's just a lot of activity. You see that with each one of the channels, all the way from Joe Everest and what he's doing down to Dan Blanc and over at My Fence Life and Dan Wheeler with the Fence Industry Podcast, Sean King and the Mr. Fence Academy guys and everybody out there. And so many more people that I follow every day on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. So I wanted to share with each of you, especially after the conversation that I had with Robert Whitaker last week in the episode that we had. I saw a lot of action and activity, and I know there's a lot of questions out there. I posed, as many of you saw over the last few days, questions saying, hey, what does everybody need? Like, what does each group of people want? Because there's some of you guys that are super young. There's some of you that have been in the business, decades and decades longer than I have. And but everybody is at a different place. But it seems like there's common themes out there. There's common needs. And that's what Robert and I hit on last week. And so if you didn't watch that or listen to that, definitely go back and check that out. But I just saw over, especially in 2023 here where we're sitting, that there's so much change in a positive way. I mean, look at like what Brian Fredrickson and FWA has done, like with the Fence Show. And that's a catalyst for some of the things that are changing and some of the great things that are happening. I've had the honor the last year and a half, and I'm about to finish my term being the chapter president for the Midwest chapter of the American Fence Association. And, that was something that Randy Ward out of Tulsa here actually got me into. And it is really just, it's really fed into me as a fence professional to remind me and show me just how this industry can be something better and can make an impact and do things that it's not just a fence company. You're not just a fence guy, a fence gal. Like you, what you do matters. You hear people talking about, being essential, and we saw all that stuff over the last 3 years with COVID and everything. And I really think that speaks to the truth of the matter. And that's what you're seeing, like these new organizations, these new opportunities, these new events and all this stuff popping up. But hey, there's a chance, especially right now, as a lot of us are talking about slowdowns in the marketplace and all these different things. I mean, there's an opportunity to make an impact. There's an opportunity to change your business today, to change what you're doing, to impact your team in a positive manner, not a negative manner, even when we know that there's a chance that things are going to get tough, that things are going to tighten up. It's not going to be as easy as it was maybe yesterday. But to me, that's an encouragement, because I'm like, this gives us and allows us an opportunity to recharge, to really look at what each of us are doing and how our businesses are set up, how we're running each individual business, and go from there. How our relationships are, as I talk about all the time, with our vendors, with our bankers, everyone that has a piece of the puzzle to each business. What does that look like? Like, what needs to be refined? What needs to be tightened up? And, there's just so much there. Dan Blanc just had a conversation with Matt Warner literally about that. They're in the middle of a series going through, how do you tighten things up? What do you do? And all that. And that's what I wanted to share, first and foremost, is going back. I'm getting messages, sorry. is going back to think about what we have today in front of us and what we can do to make tomorrow better. And there's specific things. I think the opportunity for each of us to network and connect with each other on a one-to-one basis is probably the most important thing, especially if you're younger in the business. That has been vital to myself. I've been invited into groups. I've been invited to do things, to travel, to meet people. And I'm telling you what, I have learned so much just by hanging out with people that are so much further ahead than I in business, and specifically in our industries of fencing and gates and security products. Just being able to go into those environments where someone's 20 years, 30 years ahead, ask questions, and you can see the pathway. Like, I literally see the path, which is exciting me, because I think that is going to allow us, like at Radius, it's going to allow us to do so much more faster, because we're able to connect the pieces and connect the dots of like, hey, they told me to miss this obstacle or do this. But that all goes back to training and learning. And that's something that you're going to see over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, with our show, there's a handful of things. We're going to be teaching a lot of very technical things with technical products. We're also going to be talking about, different ways to affect the marketplace. Safety is a big thing. It's like the buzzword of the industry since 2018, when they changed like UL standards and stuff like that again, or I should say updated the update. But as I say that, it's all out there. The information's hitting us now at a breakneck speed. And this makes it very important for everyone to understand what things are on the horizon, where we can learn and we can engage in those things even more. Specifically, here at the end of September, we have a golf tournament in Afton, Oklahoma. That's going to be something that I'm heading up with our team from the Midwest chapter. Here at I think the beginning of November, there is actually a American Fence Association University, AFAU is what they call that. And there's opportunities to send your team down to Dallas, Texas for a week and learn everything about anything. There's a sales school. There's every type of discipline in actual fence building. There's a gate operator training technician school. There's a gate operator design school. You can get certified. You can show all these things. Now, someone that has all the freaking certifications except for one, I've been pretty blessed to be invited to, and I've paid for all those along the way. But man, there's some really cool stuff. I've learned so much by getting involved with the certification process, doing that. And it allows it to speak for itself. Like, I don't have to tell you the authority that I have, the things that I've learned. I can just show you my credentials. And it, like I said, you kind of let it speak for itself, because I don't want to be like, walk up to a client and be like, well, you can buy from ABC company, or you can buy from me because I've got, all these fancy accreditations and certifications and stuff like that. But truth be known, and I don't talk about it a lot, but from a sales perspective, that stuff does matter. You'd be surprised. There's people that see that stuff. It's just like the good old school Better Business Bureau. You got an A+ rating. There's going to be somebody that immediately is like, hey, I saw that you have an A+ rating on Better Business Bureau. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So when I had a client tell me that, I paid the money and was like, I guess I'll get in this game, and get accredited from the Better Business Bureau. So, but AFAU is coming up in November, and then of course immediately around the corner, the party of the year, everything that all of us, if you went years ago, it is an awesome place for fencers to hang out, to learn and grow together, which is Nashville. We've got Fence Tech 2024 coming up at the end of January in Nashville. Signups for all that stuff, I believe registration is open immediately now. And man, it's going to be an awesome event. My buddy Dan Wheeler talks about all the time the networking opportunities. You get to the next big event. Absolutely. So for those of you that are close to Oklahoma or want to come hang out for the weekend or whatever, September 29th and 30th, we'll be up at Monkey Island, Afton, Oklahoma, with all of my friends. Right now, we have 90 golfers at our golf tournament. We'll have well over 150 people attending that event. So that's exciting. And then AFAU in November, and then, of course, Fence Tech 2024. But there's so much we're going to be talking about so much stuff. I'm just excited across the board. You're going to see more and more things. Like I said, we're going to finish the year strong, really kind of dial things in as we get into Fence Tech on this show. And if anybody has anything else you want to send our way or have any questions or anything, as always, I always mention, email me at info@protectingyourradius.com. We would love to connect with you there. And let's go back in time here and check out my conversation with Cliff Richardson from Arrow Fence. See you guys.
My guest is Cliff Richardson with Arrow Fence out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is also one of the founders of Fence Track and a founder of Stain Track. So, Cliff, welcome today, buddy.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, man. So, a lot of people may not know you or have met you. So, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your story, your upbringing in the fence industry, and so on?
Yeah, I grew up in the fence business. My father bought Empire Fence from Marvin Mann at Ace Fence Company in 1959, and so he started up with Empire. And at the age of about 10 years old, I started going out and bolting up tension bands for the crews for the next day. So, got paid about a penny a piece to go out and bolt up tension bands before the crews would go out the next day. And that's how I got started with Empire, my father's company.
And then at some point you started Arrow Fence, broke out on your own. What did that look like?
Yeah, I worked for my father from the time I was 10 up until I was 21. Broke away from him when I was 21 and started Arrow Fence Company. Been working Arrow Fence Company now for 48 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So along the way, you're a big innovator. I think what a lot of people will find out after this episode is you're one of those guys that likes to think outside the box with a lot of your stories and stuff. So tell us about the Stain Track, the Fence Track, how all that came along.
Well, the way I kind of got to thinking outside the box is I worked for Eddie Gibbs when he first started up Ameristar. I had the Arrow Fence Company. We're getting ready to go into wintertime. Eddie asked me to come over and help him get Ameristar started. All he was selling at that time were hinges and latches. That's all he was making at that time. And so I worked for him for about 2 or 3 months just to help him get it started. And then in the spring, I went back to, working Arrow. But during the time I worked with Eddie at Ameristar, it got me to thinking more about, new products that I could think up, things like that. So Eddie was kind of my inspiration as far as starting to think outside the box.
That's cool. That's cool. So Fence Track, from conversations with Brett, Fence Track came along because you and him, explain that story a little bit. Like you saw a need one day with a client? Or?
Actually, what happened, we were working for our corporate attorney.
Okay.
And so his name was Tom Leon. and we were putting up a 6-foot Ameristar fence, and our friend wanted to go ahead and put some privacy fence, attach some fence pickets, cedar pickets to the Ameristar. So after Brett and I put the fence pickets on there and stood back and looked and saw the black and the cedar look, well, we thought that was beautiful. So at that day, I told Brett, I said, we need to start thinking about how we could come up with a fence that would be a combination of steel and wood, like we had built that day for our customer.
And that was the advent of Fence Track. That's pretty cool. You know, if we look at our wide shot here, we have a Fence Track panel behind you with the new LuxCore product,
right,
you know, that Brett's bringing into the marketplace. So now we've moved from the wood infills to the vinyls, composites. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with the system that you guys developed.
Well, that was the cool thing about the new product that we came out with, is we began to realize that there was you could just put almost anything inside of it. Galvanized barn tin. I put bamboo in it. I ordered some bamboo from California. Right. It looked beautiful in the system. So we just began to realize that it was unlimited what you could put inside a Fence Track, as long as it would fit in that 1-inch U-channel.
Yeah, absolutely. So then came along one of your buddies, Dwayne Voss.
Right. Dwayne had retired from being a mechanic, and Dwayne was one of these guys that was like the show MacGyver. He was always coming up with little inventions or little cool things, that make life easier,
sure, less
work. And so I sent Dwayne out to stain some pickets out in the yard one day. He was working for Arrow at the time, and we had a stain job that we needed to get done. It was windy that day, and it was a graystone color from Wood Defender that he was spraying, so that's kind of a greenish color. So while he was out staining in the wind, he comes in about noon, and he's just totally green. I mean, beard, hair, right, clothes, everything green. And he was cussing and complaining about, what a mess this was. And so he said, we got to come up with something better than this. And I said, well, let's start thinking about outside the box about it, see what we can come up with. Well, my idea was to come up with a vat that you could just dip them down in a vat and then let them hang and dry. And so just a day or two later, Dwayne says, I think I've got something that'll work. So the first thing he came up with was just to have some spring-loaded rollers coming out of the dipping tank, right through the rollers to back roll. And that worked great, but it was still a mess. So then he comes in a couple of weeks later and says, hey, I think I've got something that'll work. And that was Stain Track. That was the beginnings of the Stain Track idea.
Yeah. And that's an incredible system. I mean, to be able to take, like I've explained to some of the listeners and viewers already, to be able to take a raw piece of wood and send it through in about 5 to 7 seconds and have it come out perfectly stained.
Right.
I mean, it's just something that, you can't even get that with dipping tanks or any other applications. There's so much dry time. But because of the design with the rollers and everything, it really is a unique product.
Yes, we have sold some Stain Track machines, like in the Dallas area where people had dipping tanks. And the dipping tanks work great, but they're pretty messy.
Yeah.
And so Stain Track allows you to not make near the mess or take up near the room. I mean, one of the customers that bought a Stain Track machine that had the dipping tanks, he said the dipping tanks just take up so much space. So he was able to, just get just as much work done in a smaller space with less mess.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned, Cliff, that your focus on, you've always been an innovative guy because of people like Eddie Gibbs, and some of your friends obviously are also innovative. What do you see, thinking about innovation and technology and where the market is today and where it's going? What do you see as the biggest growth opportunity out there coming?
Well, I just think that products like Ameristar, Fence Track, the guys that want to, come up with something innovative like that, just find the things that cause you the most trouble. Or, that's how Stain Track came up. Our frustration with wood fencing warping was the way that Brett and I came up, with Fence Track. Because if you use a metal post and a metal frame, then you're less likely to have to deal with warpage. So, as far as innovation, if there are guys out there that are frustrated with something, solve the problem. And then once you get that problem solved, go ahead and get a patent on it.
For over 30 years, Southwest Automated Security has been the premier provider of gate operators, access controls, CCTV, and so much more. Visit southwestautomated.com today, taking dealers to the next level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I was thinking too, as you were saying that, was I think that the ability to see a problem and solve it is what leads a lot of young people or up and coming entrepreneurs into that space, like to start their own business, to solve those problems maybe that you haven't been able to solve before working for another company or an entity or something like that. So with that being said, what would you tell some of our listeners and viewers that are younger out there that are wanting to take that leap into the next big thing that's ahead of them?
I came up with a 6-foot long drop rod for double drive gates because, a little 2-foot gate in a 50-mile-an-hour wind will just not, drop rod will not hold up. So,
right.
Once again, every time you see a problem, try to find a solution to it. And then if it's a good solution, then get out there and hustle and start up a new product line.
Right. Absolutely. Kind of as we kind of tie things up and wrap things up, Cliff, I think your journey through just what you've done in business and the people that you've surrounded yourself should give a lot of people quite a bit of encouragement and stuff. You've been involved in a bunch of different groups, the AFA, for example. What do you think about that community-driven aspect? Like, what did that mean maybe when you were younger? And then how do you see the marketplace today compared to maybe what it was 20 years ago?
Well, one of the things that I saw in the late 1950s going on into the 1960s is if you were in the fence business, if you had a competitor, they were almost a hated,
right.
Entity. So
sure.
I noticed in the 1970s, the guys quit being so competitive and, showing that hatred toward each other as coming together, and grow, helping the fencing industry. And so in the mid 1970s, the Tulsa area created, the beginnings of what would be kind of like the AFA.
Gotcha.
And instead of being enemies, they started becoming friends and started working together. And now today, you see guys like stainless steel experts, Caleb, he gets out there and he just shows people how to make money, how to grow a business, how to start a business.
Sure.
And so, what I've seen in my lifetime is, your competitor was your hated enemy. And now, people are out there helping each other, right, working together, trying to help each other make more money instead of, just not liking each other.
Right. Or eliminating the race to the bottom.
Right.
Right. Like we've all seen that, where everyone, it gets so competitive that we just drive the marketplace down. Instead, we edify each other and raise the marketplace up. Because to be fair, as everyone's watching this, we are technically competitors,
yes,
right?
You and I are competitors.
I mean, go figure, So, I think that's so appropriate today, and you have been involved in, I know we've gone together for the last 9-10 years to Fence Tech every year with the American Fence Association. So, Cliff, tell us about Fence Tech, because I think our first Fence Tech was together in Vegas.
Yeah.
For Fence Track. I was actually working for Fence Track with Brett and Cliff. And just tell us your experience with that. They've heard my experience with it, so they don't want me to pitch them anymore. But, man, all the people we've met over the years and stuff. What do you think about that?
The relationships over the years, getting to know people all over the country, how they do things and how they do things differently. The other thing is I always look forward to going to Fence Tech to see what's new. What's the new product that's out, And that was the exciting thing, just like bringing Stain Track to the show. People just love seeing something new and different, and that's what I always look forward to is the new relationships I can build, and then seeing the new things that are out in the fencing industry.
Yeah. And I hope everybody watching or listening is already looking forward to, even if you're not in the fence or gate industry at this point, there's so many things that are there in construction related entities. And we've got like software companies now showing up out of the woodworks. I mean, there's going to be so much there. Oklahoma City, the first week of March is where we have it. So it's in our backyard. We are stoked about that. I know we've all been talking about having Fence Tech here, which is going to be really, really exciting. But let's kind of put a bow on this thing, Cliff, and wrap this thing up. In 2023, we talked about this before, but what do you see personally? Like, what's your goal, or what's kind of your mindset going into 2023 and beyond right now?
Well, I'm looking forward to, like with Fence Track, we'll be coming out with the new Lux Core product,
Right.
Stain Track, we continue to improve it, make it a better machine. As far as Aero Fence Company, we're looking forward to growing the company, getting, more focused on social media, putting things out there on Facebook, doing podcasts like this, with different people. So, we just want to focus on getting our products out there and our company representation out there by, focusing on social media.
Sure. And, I think that's a big testament to where you see with your companies the future lying, because if people don't know, it was actually yourself and Brett were the ones that approached me about even starting all of this.
Right.
So all this is really your guys' brainchild, and at the end of the day. But I agree with you, man. I think there's so much room for continued improvement, where we could all go together and get better together. Joe Everest all the time, I think weekly now anymore. And I've heard Dan Wheeler mention this too as well on his podcast. But rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're having a conversation about. And hopefully everyone out there can go to Stain Track's website, can go to Fence Track's website, get additional information, specifically on our website at protectingyourradius.com. We have links to all of our partners. Again, Fence Track with the Lux Core product is our primary chief partner to start here. But Stain Track and Wood Defender have stepped up as well. And man, we're just super blessed to have you, me personally, have you as a friend, but even more importantly, have you as a business partner in this process and teach people what we know.
Yep.
And hopefully a lot of people can learn, some really cool stuff. So I love the stories about you when you're younger, talking about Eddie. A lot of people see Eddie anymore, especially since he's out of the business, is like this, the grand wizard, the Wizard of Oz type character, right? The guy that, but knowing, like, we both know him personally and have had interactions with him, and you grew up with him.
Yeah. And he wrote a book called Somebody Left the Gate Open. If you want to hear a cool story, get the book. It's a small, short book to read, but it's great information and it's a great success story.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, cool. That's it for this week. We appreciate you guys listening and everything. Like I said, visit our website. You can get more information about all of our great partners and what's going on in the market. And hopefully we will see all of you at Fence Tech 2023 in OKC here at the beginning of March. Signing off. Take care, guys.
You've been listening to the Protecting Your Radius podcast from the Lux Core Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma. Thanks for sticking around, and connect with us and all of our partners at www.protectingyourradius.com. We want to thank our premier partners. Lux Core, the newest line of premium quality composite infill to slide into your Fence Track fence system. Frame your style today. Also, Stain Track, the world's first patented standalone stain machine. Utilizing flood coat technology, Stain Track covers boards, pickets, posts, and any type of dimensional wood you can think of. And what better way to use your Stain Track machine than to use the easy application Wood Defender family of stains. Wood Defender goes on easy and covers in one coat with no back brushing. And of course, the true power of our show is you, the listener. Please rate and review our show on whatever platform you consume this content. Your 5-star likes and reviews help other contractors get the message that we all want to be better and do better. And in the construction world, we can never forget that before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you can be good, you've got to be bad. But before you can even be bad, you've got to try.